So in this video we're going to talk about track saws. 3 years ago I didn't even know they existed, and today I cannot imagine doing what I do without one. So the first thing I'd like to address is what is a track saw exactly, and how does it differ from a circular saw? So a track saw is a saw that's guided on a track or a guide rail, as it's often referred to. And the track itself has neoprene strips on the bottom which keep it from sliding on the work surface, so you don't usually have to clamp it down unless you're working on something like melamine or a UV finish plywood. Sometimes it can get a little slick. There's also a splinter guard on the track itself, and in the case of my saw, which is a Festool, and I believe most of them out there, there's a splinter guard on the saw itself as well. So that keeps the opposite side clear from splintering. So aside from the track, you have some functionality difference between a track saw and a regular circular saw. And when you go to set your depth, so if I'm cutting 1/4 inch material, I would have it set here, and that would get the 1/4 inch, but I needed to go through the material, so I just bring it down an additional notch, and that usually covers it. A lot of times I'll just cut on either a 2x6, 2x4 material that's just sacrificial piece underneath, or sometimes the foam insulation board as well. So those are some options for that. If you need to put the saw at an angle, you just loosen these knobs on the front and back, and you just do that, and then you can move the saw to wherever you need it. And then your hose connects here, and it does a decent job of pulling out the sawdust. Then you have variable speed control here. And in this particular saw, they have what they call a fast fix if you want to change the blade, which we'll get into in a minute, but it allows you just to quickly change the blade. So there are several benefits to using a track saw. One of them is that they have essentially a splinter-free cut, and that's whether you're cross-cutting plywood. One that comes to mind is just cutting oak plywood. It just has a tendency to splinter. You can cross-cut with it, virtually splinter-free, nothing really to deal with. So if you're making cabinetry, it gives you just a great clean cut. Another is just the ease of use. You put your track down on your marks, and you know that's exactly where your saw is going to go, so you just make your cut, and it gives you a great clean cut. And the other thing is portability. So I take a track like this, track saw, or even this table, which is the Festool MFT3 multifunction table, and I can use this as a workbench on the job site, as well as a cutting platform for using the track saw and many other things. But it's a lot easier than taking something like even a small table saw or anything like that. And you're dealing with a very accurate cutting system that you might not be getting with a inexpensive job site saw. So another advantage to a track saw is if you wanted to take and clean the edge of this drawer front up. So say sometimes you make them a little bit bigger and you want to come back and just trim it so the stile and rail lines up just right. You can just put the track on. In this case I have it on the MFT table, but you could do it with just the track and clamps. I've done it before. And just run the saw over that and you get a clean edge. Sometimes I will put a little piece of tape on this end just so that I don't have, because the grain's running this way, so I don't have any blowout at the end there or splintering. Another thing that's really easy to do with a track saw is if you wanted to cut something at an angle. Say you for some reason had to cut this at a slight angle, it's really convenient to just put something in there like that where you have a little bit more reveal here showing, and just trim this off. You get a very accurate clean line. So again, I find it just an invaluable tool that I use so often in what I do. So the next thing is do you really need a track saw? Depending on the type of work you do, if you work in carpentry, I cannot imagine that a track saw would not be a benefit to you. So in the case for me, the Festool ended up being the best choice. And this is their TS55. They make it in a cordless version as well. And for cutting sheet goods as a cabinet maker, this works really well for me. They make another one that's a little bit larger than the 55. It's called the 75, and it has a larger diameter blade, so it cuts deeper and has a little bit more power. So in the Festool line, additionally to the TS55 and the 75, they make one called an HKC 55, and that's going to be a little better suited for you if you probably work in more framing, building decks, things along those lines. Having owned two different track saws now, I think I can give you a few things to consider when you go to make your purchase. One is going to be the level of use. Is it something that you use to make your living? So it's going to be something you need day in and day out, so you need a high quality tool with a great warranty. The next would be what other tools you already have. Do you have a really good table saw? So maybe you don't need the full table. Do you need to get the table and accessories to go with the track saw? So these are just things that I would consider. Additionally would be, do you already have tools from that manufacturer? So if you're going the cordless route, would batteries from one tool transfer over to the saw? That's always something to consider because batteries are very expensive. And in my case, I had some Festool products already, and I wanted to be able to eventually get the router and have that work on the guide rails as well. So those were just things to consider. And one of the major draws for me for Festool was all the accessories that are available for it. All of the ones that I have are from Festool with the exception of this woodpecker square. But there's so many different things for parallel guides, clamps that work in the tables, that just makes life really easy and convenient when you're on a job and you need to clamp something. So even this table is just is a great accessory. Another thing I like to talk about with the track saws are the blades. So in the case of Festool, they have three different blades that are available for this track saw, the TS55. They have the one that comes on it, which is kind of a cross-cut blade. There's one that's called a universal, and another one's a panther. And I have the universal, and it makes all the difference when cutting through hardwoods or thick stock. I'm going to show you some examples of cutting through maple. The maple is 13/16 thick, and the walnut is 2 inches. So it cuts through it really with no issue. I don't find any problem. I think it's just similar to how you would not take a cross-cutting blade or a fine finish blade in a table saw and try to rip hardwood with it. It wouldn't work and you wouldn't do it. You'd put a rip blade in there. Same thing for a track saw. So the blade that comes in it is a very fine-toothed blade, and this is great for finished material, cross-cut. The universal blade is definitely a bit more aggressive, and they make a blade called the Panther, which is even more aggressive than this. So I don't find any issue at all with power or the ability to cut through thick stock. So unless you're really cutting through hard, thick material all the time, and the one thing is that when you do cut on a bevel, obviously you're changing the depth the saw can go. So if you have to cut thick material on bevels, that's another reason to go with maybe like the 75. But if you're primarily working with sheet goods and hardwood that's, you know, an inch and a half thick, I don't really see any reason why you would need the 75. Hard maple's pretty hard. I've cut purple heart, and just with no issues, as long as you have the right blade in it. If you try to use this blade, you're going to have problems. You're going to think the saw doesn't have enough power or something's wrong. It's just the blade. Change the blade and you'll see a dramatic difference. Well, if you found this video helpful, I hope you'll give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.